Welcome back. We are putting out another important question on News Epicenter tonight. This one is about the controversial way China is handling COVID-19. And is that going to lead to a possible global mayhem? Now, why do we say that? As you know, reports of China continuing to give a rather inaccurate picture of the real crisis in the country are only growing. And the World Health Organization is very concerned about the evolving situation there. What has happened now is that amidst the COVID outbreak in China, Chinese activist Jennifer Zeng has tweeted out a few videos that reveal to the world what can be termed nothing short of a COVID horror in the country. Morgues overwhelmed due to mounting number of dead bodies, China's Zhejiang battling around 1 million new daily COVID-19 infections, a number expected only to double in the days ahead, and the National Health Commission stopping reporting asymptomatic infections, making it even harder to track cases. All this shows how China is finding it extremely difficult to contain the massive surge in coronavirus cases. And to top it, it has now decided to stop publishing daily COVID-19 figures altogether. No reasons given. Chinese President Xi Jinping, however, has now urged officials to take steps to protect lives in his first public remarks on COVID-19 since Beijing dramatically loosened the hardline containment measures this month.
你看看吧，老同学的，你瞅瞅，这家伙。
This is just one of China's crematoriums.
全是啊，看着。
Everywhere you look, there is another body waiting to be cremated.
这他妈都不叫玩意了，这家伙。
Outside the crematorium are long queues of grieving families with photographs of their deceased. Some have been waiting for days to lay their loved ones to rest. Smoke is constantly billowing from the furnaces as body bags pile up. Visuals of despair are also being witnessed in hospitals as well. Intensive care units are turning away ambulances. Relatives of patients are searching for empty beds. Patients are lying on floors in hospital corridors. Even some of the top hospitals in Beijing have run out of beds and oxygen tanks. What's clear is that COVID-19 is wreaking havoc in the country all over again. According to reports, China is likely to be reporting 37 million cases every single day. 248 million people in China were likely to have been infected in the first 20 days of December. 5,000 people may be dying daily in China in what could be the largest outbreak the world has ever seen. But Xi Jinping is continuing to play hide and seek, just as he has done for the last 3 years. From not revealing the truth about the origin of the virus to concealing the real number of cases, and now deciding not to publish daily COVID death data. It's been smoke and mirrors right from day one. So is it time for the World Health Organization to hold Xi Jinping accountable?
Joining us on the broadcast tonight is Jennifer Zeng, who is the Chinese whistleblower who raised these very concerns in the first place. She's also a human rights activist. Jennifer, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Now, you flagged out some major concerns regarding COVID cases from China. Could you please explain to our viewers what are those?
I think the main concern, as we are seeing now, is the high fatality rate and the high infection rate, and whether what is really going on in China, whether it's really Omicron or something else, or just, as some experts say, it's a combination of different variants. So what we see are very, very concerning situation. Like in Beijing, all the crematoriums are operating 24/7, but still cannot handle the bodies. And I even see a post saying that they are now using industrial cold storage warehouse that for meat, for pigs, to store human bodies. And at a warehouse in Yuquanying in Beijing, 15,000 bodies are currently stored in that warehouse in Beijing. And we are starting to see similar videos showing like hospitals and crematoriums overwhelmed by bodies from all parts of China, including to the northeast, like Changchun City. I shared one video yesterday, and to the south or western south, like from Chongqing City and from other smaller places. And I even share a video, I think, from the countryside, where you can see that people are not lining up in their cars like the big cities. People are using all sorts of, scratchers or some kind of other non-car sort of cutter or whatever method they can use to move the body. There was a long line, so that must happen from the countryside somewhere because people don't have cars. So that is very concerning that many people are dying, and how the virus will be mutate from there, and will that be affect the entire world again? So that is the very concerning thing.
Now, Jennifer, you've also flagged off lists of celebrities in China who are in fact sick. Also, I'm afraid they're dying. Their deaths might be difficult to hide considering they are celebrities. How much do you know about this?
No, I'm talking about the long list of celebrities. A lot of them, I think, have already retired and are relatively of old age. Of course, there are also younger ones, like the youngest in that list is only 39 years old. So the reason I'm listing that is because their deaths are much harder to hide. People know about their deaths because they are celebrities. So my point is, if there are so many celebrities, and that is an incomplete list dying recently, and how many more ordinary Chinese are dying, if we can, that celebrity list just can give us an idea of how many people are dying. I think celebrities, they usually have better, I think, medical condition and medical conditions and better protections to protect themselves. And if they are sick, I believe they have better conditions to get better medical treatment. And also, I shared this morning, and in December alone, there are 15 academies. They are very high level they are the academies of the Chinese Academy of Science and and engineering. So that's the top scientists of China. In December alone, 15 of them died. Okay. So this is just give people a rough idea of how high the death toll is in China, because celebrities, their deaths are easier to learn about, and for ordinary people, like I said, 15,000 bodies stored in the Yuquanying cold storage warehouse, but we don't know who they are.
So you are saying that celeb fatalities, the number hasn't been made public? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think, actually, like I shared the news before, they state the Chinese National Health Commission has already stopped releasing any information regarding the COVID-19. And this morning, they just announced from January 8th of next year, they were, downgrade the COVID to category B. So initially, the COVID was regarded as a category A disease and in China. So that is, to be controlled or prevent at the highest level because it was very dangerous. Now they've just downgraded the COVID to moved it to category B. So if in theory, if a disease is in category B, you don't have to monitor it or to control it to impose lockdown. So they've just done that. They are not releasing numbers anymore. They are downgrade the category of COVID. So I think that is very irresponsible and also dangerous.
Also, Jennifer, Chinese President Xi Jinping today urged the officials to take steps to protect lives. And this was his first ever public remark on COVID-19 since Beijing dramatically loosened the zero COVID this month. So what do you make of these statements?
I think actually the reason why Xi Jinping had been imposing the most inhumane lockdowns was also he claimed we are responsible. We are the most responsible government in the world. That's why we have to impose this strict lockdown because we are responsible to human beings' life and because other countries, they are not responsible. So we are doing this. Now he's talking about being responsible again. I think that is the most irresponsible measure any government or any regime can take in this whole world. But the fact that he's responding to it also, I think, indicates now he felt the pressure because the whole world, the fact that so many people are dying can hardly be hidden from the whole world. So he must have got some response or pressure from the international world, or maybe from his own, other factions within the party, also from all sorts of, aspects. That's why he is responding. But talking about being responsible is the most ridiculous thing we can ever hear.
Also talking about Zhejiang, Jennifer, this is a big industrial province that we are talking about. Now that alone is battling around 1 million new daily COVID-19 infections, and the number is only expected to double in the days to come. How bad are the COVID numbers really looking that are coming out of China?
I think I actually talked about leaked internal meeting notes. So as of December 20th, from December 1st to December 20th, the total infection number in entire China is 448 million people. So that was just like in 3 weeks' time. Now we are several days after that. We know how fast the Omicron is spreading, so we can, I think, reasonably believe that number have already been doubled since the 20th of December. And according to, people share social media posts of them, many people are saying almost all the people they know around them or in their own circle, either everybody has already been infected, or 60 to 70% of the people they know were infected. And there was one CCP official, I think, in the discipline inspection department saying something. Out of 19 co-workers in his department, 17 of them have already been infected. So the infection number must be huge and huge, hundreds and hundreds of millions.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for that update. Very, very important one that's coming in from China. I'd like to thank you for joining me. Let me now open this to my guests who are joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Rajiv Jayadevan, who's a chairperson, National Indian Medical Association and also a member of the COVID task force is with us, and also joining us is Dr. Rajiv Dasgupta, National AEFI Committee member. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. We just heard what Jennifer Zheng mentioned, the reports that are coming out of China. Mr. Jayadevan, what do you make of the situation? Because only as we speak, we are talking about one person who traveled from China, came into India, and also was tested and turned out to be COVID positive. If we do not curb the kind of flights that are coming out of China and that travel advisory is not made stricter, we'd have many such cases coming in.
Those are good questions, but let me first explain what is happening in China, the first part of your question. It's like a dam that was holding a very large amount of water and the floodgates have just opened. Now, if you evacuate the people from the villages downstream ahead of time, yes, we can prevent human casualties. But in COVID language, evacuation is equivalent to vaccination. That is, if you vaccinate all the people ahead of opening the dam or opening the floodgates, yes, you can minimize casualties. But unfortunately, that did not happen, especially in the low-lying areas. That is, the people who are elderly. There are about 1 crore people. That is 10 million people over the age of 80 who are profoundly vulnerable for lack of having taken the vaccine. So that's a tragedy that is waiting to happen. And in that context, many people, I've heard them say that Omicron is mild, it's a common cold. That is not true. Omicron is as severe or nearly as severe as the original variant. Agreed that it's about 67% less severe than Delta. The difference is if it spreads in a vaccinated population, yes, it is much less severe than the original strain. Now let's turn to China. Omicron, the same virus, is spreading in a relatively unvaccinated population. I'm talking about the older segment. Now, I think the stories that were shown here clearly correlate with what we could expect if that were to happen. That, I believe, is what is happening in China.
Yeah. So, Dr. Dasgupta, thank you so much, Mr. Jayadevan, for, beautifully breaking it down for our viewers. And that's exactly what we have been talking about for quite some time now, considering we're looking at a possible increase, unfortunately, in cases here back home. Another question that comes to fore is, should the government go ahead and wait for, let's say, the New Year celebrations to begin? Only then should the restrictions kick in? Or do we not need restrictions despite the kind of stories that are emerging from China?
Thank you. It depends what one understands as restrictions. If it is, for example, about incoming travel, air traffic or sea traffic, there is no scope or room at all for such restrictions, because that's pointless. A, because it wouldn't stop the infections, and B, a lot of infection has already spread from China all around the world, just as it happened.
No, but Dr. Dasgupta, why do you say that? I mean, I just mentioned about a case about a person who was traveling from China. He was tested. He turned out to be COVID positive. Now his sample has been sent for genome sequencing. Don't you think this entire process we can actually do away with if the flights are stopped? Or do you think it cannot be done now that we've learned to live with it?
No, there are at least three things. One, travel restrictions have not stopped import of COVID into any of the countries worldwide. We have about 3 years of experience of that. Second, India, of course, is an immunologically completely different population from China, which is a lot immunologically naive, as Dr. Jayadevan very lucidly explained. And third, there is always going to be cases detected who are coming in from China. The international travelers can and should certainly be screened, and they should be quarantined and treated, and most of them, I believe, would recover uneventfully. There is no room for restricting travel, certainly.
Okay. Mr. Jayadevan, do you agree? And do you think this random testing of passengers at the, let's say, the IGI airport or various other international airports in the country, do you think 2% of those passengers being tested, do you think that works?
Yes, I believe it will work. It's impossible to test all passengers because airports will be completely blocked, and you know that very well. So that's one. Second is, if you saw today's Hindu, Vinod Skaria and Benny Jolie have written about the about the incredibly low number of sequences that are available from China. In other words, there's for our viewers, I'll say this: there is something called the GISET database, which is globally accessible for any user. We can all access all the genomes that are uploaded onto the server. So, if you want to see the genomes that are circulating in France, it's easy for anyone to do that. Now, the number of genomes, for some reason, that are uploaded from China are so low. It's only 30 sequences since October. That's almost close to zero for a country that size. So the point I'm making is, we simply do not know enough about the genomic profile of the variants that are circulating there. We're assuming it is Omicron. We know the old story about assuming. You might get it wrong. So it's always a good thing to go the extra mile and screen passengers and send them directly for genomic sequencing. It is not the passengers themselves are not dangerous as travelers. As Dr. Dasgupta said, restricting air travel has never, ever proved to be of
So what
any
about
value.
vaccination now? How does the precaution dose help, and how does one go ahead and encourage people to, despite having taken both the doses of the vaccine, they should actually go and take their precaution doses as well?
Yes, we must remember that India is about 10 months past the last major wave. Now, that's a long period of time. And we are facing holidays, we are facing travel, it's winter conditions, people are going to gather indoors, the schools are out. So this might be the perfect setting for another wave to happen. Nobody can predict when a wave will happen. But when the perfect settings for a storm happens, a storm will happen. So likewise, if we are anticipating a wave with most likely a more immune evasive variant, or let's say hypothetically a brand new variant, the vulnerable individuals should go the extra mile and get themselves a precautionary dose.
Okay. So, Dr. Dasgupta, one final word. Would you still induce people to go ahead and ramp up testing, or do you think that will incur a lot of fear among people and they should just be treated as a common cold? Should we still be on that statement, or there should be more testing that needs to be done?
There ought to be more testing that needs to be done. As almost worldwide testing in India has sharply fallen. What has also reduced in India, what we often don't take into account, is that the number of vaccination centers have also drastically declined. So ramping up vaccination would also mean getting back to somewhere closer to the original number of centers. And finally, to facilitate all of these, both vaccination as well as testing, we really need to reinvent our crisis communication, because what the communication strategies were 3 years ago, or even 1 year ago, is not really appropriate now.
All right. Dr. Dasgupta and Mr. Jayadevan, thank you so much for joining us for this very important chat. I'd like to thank you both for being a part of this conversation. And before I end this broadcast this evening, let's talk about the monstrous Arctic storm that has gripped most of the continental US over the Christmas holiday, and it has left more than 30 people dead. These freezing temperatures trailing across the nation have wreaked havoc in many parts of the country as well as Canada, and about 60% of the US population is facing the weather warning, and the temperatures have dropped sharply. Take a look at this report.
An ongoing winter storm has brought freezing temperatures, blizzard conditions, flooding, and power outages to millions of Americans this Christmas. At least 26 people have died from storm-related incidents across the U.S., with the latest fatalities reported in New York.
I don't want to say that this is going to be it, because it would be fallacy for me to say that, because we know there are people who've been stuck in cars for more than 2 days, and there are people in homes that are below freezing now temperatures.
By Sunday morning, more than 55 million people were under wind chill alerts and freeze warnings across the South. In New York City, it was the second coldest Christmas Eve in 150 years, according to the National Weather Service.
This is a war with Mother Nature, and she has been hitting us with everything she has since the late hours of Thursday into Friday, Saturday, and now on Christmas morning. And this will go down in history as the most devastating storm
Meanwhile, several busloads of migrants were dropped off in Washington, D.C. late Saturday night in front of Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in 18-degree weather. One organization, which has been receiving migrants sent to D.C. since the spring, was prepared for their arrival.
These buses were actually initially intended to go to New York and then shifted to D.C. because of the weather. So for many people, the free ride to get them closer to their final destination is actually a really important service.
Also this Christmas, thousands of Americans are stranded at U.S. airports due to the winter weather. By Sunday morning, more than 1,600 flights had been canceled, according to FlightAware.